This is the dough that I made this morning, and it's resting in the, I just took it out of the refrigerator to take a picture. It doesn't look like much, that's the size of the bowl. But again, it's supposed to stretch a lot. So I'm gonna put it back in the fridge. I've got my KitchenAid all set up to peel the apples for me because why not? So I'm gonna go ahead, peel the apples, then I'm gonna spiralize them into little pieces so I can get them nice and fine so they don't rip the dough when you roll it. I'll show you more on that when I get to it. Okay, I put one apple up and I'll let this run if I can and show you how it peels the apple. Then I'm gonna spiralize them. This is what I'm using. KitchenAid Spiralizer with Peel Core Slice. It does a little bit of everything. Very handy tool. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in and I'll turn it on and I'll show you how it works. Okay, I'm ready to start it. Here we go. This is gonna peel the apple for me. Why do all that extra when you can just peel it all into a bag? Then after I get them all peeled, I'll go ahead and show you how the spiralizer works to make nice thin little slices. And then I think I'm even going to chop them up finer because I'm so worried about ripping the dough. So it's pretty fast. It only takes maybe 15 seconds to do the apple. All done. Hey, my helper's not here with me today, so I'm trying to do the photography all by myself. This is the piece that goes into the apple to hold it onto the machine. This was the blade that I used for the peeling. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert this little attachment right here, which is going to slice it into nice little thin spirals for me. As you can see, they're all peeled very well. Now I'm going to go ahead and start the spiralizer. As soon as I get an apple on, I'll show you how that goes. This is how nice and thin they get. Because this dough is so fragile, I've cut these into nice little tiny strips because I don't want it to rip through. After I finish slicing them all up into little strips, I'm going to go ahead and add the cinnamon and the spices, sugar, nutmeg, anything you would like in yours. A lot of people add currants or raisins. I'm not going to do that. You can add nuts if you'd like, but I'm just going to stick with the basic apple filling that you would use for an apple pie, but sliced much thinner. This is all the apples, sliced very thin, and then I've kind of slivered them. I've watched videos on making this because I've never done it before. And many of them recommend putting it through a food processor or grate them. So I'm going to let this soak overnight because I want to take a lot of the juice out because otherwise it will make the strudel too soggy. And I don't like soggy strudel. So I'm going to let it rest overnight so I can drain some of the juice out. And then if I feel the need to, I can always throw it in my Cuisinart and just mush it all up. But I like little pieces of apple, although it recommends doing that because of the dough being so thin. So we'll see how it turns out. I'll make up my mind in the morning. So stay tuned for the next part. Okay, I'm back. I let the dough rest overnight in the fridge. I took it out early this morning. It doesn't rise because there's no yeast in it at all. It's a fairly simple recipe. I put it in an oiled bowl and I let it just sit overnight in the fridge. Took it out this morning. Gonna flour it up a little bit. It feels really smooth, real smooth. It's not like any other dough I've ever made before. And if this doesn't come out good, this video will never see the light of day, so it doesn't really matter. I took a clean tablecloth and I dusted it with flour. I also took a little bit of flour. I'm gonna add a little more to my rolling pin. This dough has to be rolled out very carefully and very slowly. And this dough should pretty much cover the whole area when I'm done with it. You'll be able to actually read a piece of paper through it. I've watched several videos just to look at different techniques. Everybody does it a little different. Every recipe is a little different. The dough recipe I got from King Arthur Flour. The filling I'm going to do is my own. It's just an apple pie filling that I make all the time. And I don't want this too juicy because what will happen is it will start just to be a soggy. Don't want a soggy strudel. But you just start very carefully stretching, little by little, step by step. If it gets too tough to handle, I'll have to call in my helper to help me. But I watch people do it by themselves, and I'm going to try not to keep my thumbs turned in so I don't poke it through. The ends are thicker than the middle, and as you can see the lines of the tablecloth in the middle already. It's just a little flour, just a little bit. Don't want to dry it out, but you want to keep it workable. This is a first attempt, so I'm sure the next time I do it, I'll do a little better. I will do this again. For lack of not knowing and never done this before, I can just get some of that off. Trim it up. Yes, I can. Not as bad as I thought. Not as good as I'd hoped. This side particularly. I'm going to go ahead. I do have one big gaping hole there, but I think when that's all put in the rolled in, it'll be okay. And you can't brush the butter because it will just tear up more. So it said to just sprinkle some butter all about. This is unsalted butter. And again, the recipe came from the King Arthur flour strudel, and then I watched about 10 different videos, and everybody's method was just a little bit different. I ground up some pecans, and you can use pecans or you can use breadcrumbs, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but I had some pecans in the pantry. Ground them up nice and fine. Okay, that's enough pecans. Okay, these are my apples that I cut their, I think it was 4 or 5 Granny Smith and 3 red apples. I can't even remember off the top of my head what kind. But I put them together, I sliced them really in little teeny pieces, really fine. As you can see, they're just like little shreds. But this is how much juice was in the bowl overnight. That's almost 3, just shy of 3 cups. So when you're making things with apples, I prefer to let them sit overnight because otherwise your dough, whatever you're making, gets kind of mushy. And I don't know about you, but I don't like mushy. So we're going to load this up with some apples. They're still very moist, very wet. I've got plenty here, but I'm also going to put some in some egg roll wrappers, or maybe I'll make a pie, I'm not sure. But I figured when I'm doing projects like this, I might as well just go ahead and make extra. And we're going to roll this over a little bit. And some people just keep rolling. I'm going to add a little more apple to get through this part here. And then I'll put a little bit up here. We'll see how it happens. No big deal. It's just baking. Not too many people who don't care for apple anything. Just rolling that with the tablecloth helps so that you don't damage the dough any more than I've done in trying to make this little treat. So now we're going to be done with the apples because we do want to have some flakiness and some crusty. That looks pretty darn good if I do say so myself. Tuck the ends under. I'm sure we'll have a little leakage, but that's okay. Not the end of the world. Now, I've buttered up my half sheet pan, and it's going to have to be a little bit horseshoey because it's wider than I anticipated. And I thought the easiest way is to roll this right on. I want the turn side down. There we go. Not too bad, actually. If I do it horizontal, it fits just nicely. Now this is where you really want to put some butter on. I'm going to brush this very generously with butter. And like I said, I've already done the pan. This is unsalted butter. Food is so good. And I love making it, especially when I have company and I see people enjoy it and something different. A little time consuming, but I started it yesterday and did. So let's see, we're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees, 20 to 30 minutes, rotate down the pan, then remove it from the oven and cool at least 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven, and it's kind of noisy, so I'll cut off here, but I will be back to show you the final product. Okay, so I made my first strudel. Had a little problems with some tearing. I'm going to try it again with a different method. And because I don't do any waste, that little leftover cutoff that I did on the strudel, I made a little mini pie with the dough. I rolled it out, and I had apples left, so then I just took a pastry puff that I had and did the same thing to it. So there you go, all this from 8 apples, 1 pastry puff, and 1 round of strudel dough. So thanks for watching. I'll try to add a picture at the end of what it looks like when it's cut. Thanks and have a great day. Follow, like, and share.